How this 1% of successful people use this secret rule to get rich, and nobody tells you. Everyone talks about making money, but almost nobody talks about how the wealthiest 1% actually manage it. That's the missing piece. It's not just about earning more. It's about what you do with what you already have. Think about it. People making six figures can be broke, while others with a modest salary build real financial freedom. The difference isn't luck, it's rules. Simple, repeatable rules that the top 1% quietly live by while the rest of the world keeps hustling harder but staying stuck. This video is not another list of generic money tips. It's a direct path into a mindset shift. Because if you're tired of wondering why your paycheck never seems enough, if you're frustrated that saving feels impossible, if you've ever thought, "I'll never get ahead unless I double my income," then you're exactly in the right place. The truth is, the 1% don't have a magic wand, they have a system. And the beauty of that system is that it works even if you're not rich yet. I'm going to walk you through the exact rule they use to protect, grow, and enjoy their money without living a life of restriction. We're talking about a framework that balances security, long-term growth, and guilt-free fun. Because money isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's peace of mind when emergencies hit, it's confidence when you invest, and it's freedom to enjoy life without constantly worrying. But here's the kicker. Most people never hear about this because the financial industry thrives on keeping it complicated. If you feel like money advice always sounds confusing or intimidating, that's not an accident. Complexity keeps you dependent. Simplicity sets you free. And that's what this rule is about. Making your money simple, practical, and powerful. So before we dive in, ask yourself, do you want to keep playing the same game as everyone else, hoping for a different outcome, or do you want to see how the 1% really play it? Because once you see this system, you'll never look at your money the same way again. The real difference between rich and broke, it's not income. It's not intelligence. It's management. The richest people in the world don't just stack cash. They allocate it with precision. And that's exactly why two people earning the same salary can live in completely different realities. One feels broke every month, drowning in bills and unexpected expenses, while the other quietly builds wealth, security, and freedom. Here's the hard truth. If you don't tell your money where to go, it will control you. Most people wait for the perfect moment to start. When I get a raise. When my debt is gone. When I make six figures. That moment never comes, because lifestyle inflation eats every extra dollar the second it hits your account. That's why the top 1% don't rely on willpower. They rely on rules. Clear, non-negotiable rules that guide every paycheck before it even hits their wallet. Think about the power in that. No guessing. No guilt. No panic when a flat tire, medical bill, or random emergency shows up. While the average person scrambles to figure out how to pay for it, the wealthy already have the system in place. That's not luck. It's discipline turned into habit. And here's where it gets interesting. You don't need millions to start using the same framework. You don't even need six figures. What you need is to break the cycle of waiting for someday, and start acting like the 1% today, with whatever you already earn. Because the secret isn't hidden in a higher salary. It's hidden in the way you divide the one you've got. That division is what we're about to uncover. The first rule of the 1%. Pay yourself first. The wealthiest people don't wait until the end of the month to see what's left over. They start by paying themselves first. And that doesn't mean a shopping spree or a luxury splurge. It means setting aside 15 cents out of every single dollar you earn and protecting it like your life depends on it. Because in a way it does. Imagine your car breaks down, your kid gets sick, or you suddenly lose your job. Most people in that moment aren't just stressed about the emergency itself. They're panicked about how to pay for it. That double stress is what keeps families stuck in cycles of debt and anxiety. The 1% avoid this spiral because their system forces them to build a cushion before life throws its punches. Think about the peace of mind that comes with knowing you've got a month of essentials covered. Rent, groceries, utilities. All ready to go, no credit card swiping, no frantic borrowing. Then watch how that cushion grows into 3-6 months of expenses. That's not just money in a bank account. That's the freedom to breathe when everyone else is gasping for air. And here's the part nobody talks about. Saving that 15% isn't just about emergencies. It's about giving your future self a fighting chance. It's about shifting from survival mode to confidence mode. Because once you see that safety net grow, you stop living paycheck to paycheck. You stop making decisions out of fear. You start realizing that money can serve you, not scare you. This is the foundation the 1% builds before they invest, before they splurge, before they upgrade. Security first, everything else second. And once that foundation is set, the next step is how they make money actually work for them, turning every dollar saved into a worker that never clocks out. Turning saved money into a money-making machine. Saving is the foundation, but saving alone won't make you rich. The 1% know that money sitting still loses power. Inflation eats it, opportunities pass it by, and what feels like safety today becomes limitation tomorrow. That's why the rule doesn't stop at building a cushion. The next move is letting money work harder than you ever could. Picture two people. One starts investing early with a modest amount. The other waits, convinced they'll start when they make more. Fast forward 20 years. The early investor's account has quietly multiplied, while the late starter is playing catch-up, sinking twice the effort for half the results. The difference isn't income, it's time. Compound interest is the hidden force the 1% never ignore. They give their money years, sometimes decades, to snowball until a single dollar invested grows into dozens without them lifting a finger. And here's the key. You don't need to gamble on hot stocks or obsess over beating the market. The wealthiest people use boring, steady vehicles. Index funds, retirement accounts, tax-advantaged investments. They spread risk, lower fees, and let compounding do the heavy lifting. It's not glamorous, but it works. Consistently, predictably, quietly. Think about what that really means. Every time you put money aside and invest it, you're hiring an employee who never calls in sick, never asks for a raise, and never stops working for you. The earlier you start, the bigger your workforce grows. And while everyone else is still trading hours for dollars, you've built an army of dollars creating more dollars. This is how the 1% break free from the endless grind. They don't rely on luck or timing. They rely on discipline plus compounding. And they let time do what money alone never could. The simple investment path the 1% actually use when most people think of investing. They picture Wall Street traders glued to screens, calling shots in seconds, riding waves of risk and chaos. That image is why so many stay out of the game, convinced it's too complicated or dangerous. The truth. The 1% don't live like that. Their wealth doesn't come from constant hustling in the market. It comes from simple systems, boring strategies, and accounts you probably already have access to. If your job offers a retirement plan with a match, that's the first place to start. Think of it as free money. For every dollar you put in, your employer adds another. Walking away from that is like saying no to a bonus that compounds year after year. The 1% never leave that money on the table. After that, it's about using accounts designed to give you an edge. In the US, that means Roth IRAs, 401ks, or any tax-advantaged vehicle that lets your investments grow without the constant drag of taxes. These aren't exotic. They're available to anyone willing to contribute consistently. And once inside, the goal isn't to chase unicorn stocks. It's to go broad and low cost. Index funds spread your risk across hundreds of companies, while fees stay so low they barely touch your growth. This is how wealth multiplies without stress. No guessing games, no endless tinkering. You automate contributions, you stick to the plan, and you let time and compounding do their quiet work. That's the real secret. The rich aren't smarter than you. They're just disciplined enough to let a simple system run for them while everyone else overcomplicates the process. And here's where the next piece of the rule comes in. Because while 15% goes toward your future, the majority, 65%, has to be managed with the same level of control. That's where most people trip. And that's exactly what we'll break down next. Controlling the 65%. Essentials without lifestyle creep. Here's where the real test happens. 65% of your income goes to essentials. Rent or mortgage, groceries, utilities, transportation, the baseline costs of living. On paper that sounds simple. In reality, it's where most people lose the game. Because the moment income rises, lifestyle creep sneaks in. That bigger apartment feels deserved, that nicer car feels earned, and suddenly what should have been extra savings is swallowed whole by higher bills. The 1% don't play that way. They set a hard cap. Essentials get 65%, no more. That discipline keeps their foundation steady no matter how much they earn. When income grows, instead of inflating their lifestyle at the same speed, they channel the difference into building wealth. That's why raises make them richer, while raises barely change the financial stress of the average household. Think about it. The average person gets a pay bump and instantly upgrades something permanent: a lease, a mortgage, a car payment. Now their new lifestyle depends on that higher income, locking them into pressure and dependence. The wealthy resist that trap. They enjoy upgrades, sure, but they do it without breaking the 65% rule. Their essentials never balloon out of control. This isn't about deprivation. It's about leverage. Keeping your essentials capped gives you breathing room. It protects your ability to save, to invest, and to have fun without guilt. Because when your basics are stable, your future is flexible. That's the invisible power of the 65%. It's not just numbers, it's freedom disguised as discipline. And here's where the balance comes alive. Because after essentials are handled, there's still room left, the final 20%. That slice is what transforms this system from strict budgeting into a sustainable lifestyle. The power of the final 20%. Freedom without guilt. This is the piece that keeps the entire system alive. 20% of your income is reserved for joy, for living, for the kind of experiences that remind you why money matters in the first place. Most people think the wealthy get rich by cutting out everything fun, living in endless sacrifice. That's not true. The 1% don't see money as something to hoard. They see it as a tool to create balance. Here's why that last 20% is non-negotiable. Without it, your budget feels like a diet you can't wait to quit. Deprivation leads to rebellion. You hold back for months, then overspend in one weekend, undoing all your progress. The 1% avoid that cycle by making space for guilt-free spending from the start. Think about the relief of buying something you want without shame, because it's already built into your plan. A trip with friends, a dinner at that restaurant you've been eyeing, a small luxury that adds joy to your life. It's all part of the system. Instead of sabotaging your goals, it strengthens them. Because when money management includes room for happiness, you actually stick with it. This is what makes the 15-65-20 rule sustainable. Security from the first 15%, stability from the 65%, and motivation from the final 20%. It's not punishment, it's balance. And balance is what keeps the wealthy consistent while everyone else burns out on extremes. Now that you see the full structure, the question becomes, why does almost nobody talk about it? And that's where we step into the hidden truth about financial advice. And why simplicity is often the best kept secret. Why the financial industry doesn't want you to know this if the system is this simple. Why doesn't everyone use it? The answer is blunt. The financial industry makes more money when you stay confused. Complexity keeps you dependent. The more jargon they throw at you, the more likely you are to believe you need their products, their advice, their endless fees. And while you're busy second-guessing yourself, they're profiting from every transaction. The 1% don't fall for that game. They don't chase complicated strategies. They don't obsess over timing the market. And they don't hand over control to every shiny new advisor. They lean on rules so simple anyone could follow them, and they let discipline, not hype, do the work. Think about how many times you've been told you need the next hot stock, a fancy credit product, or some exclusive insider strategy. Every one of those distractions pulls you further from the basics that actually build wealth. That's not by accident. Confusion is a business model. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The industry doesn't care if you win. They care if you stay. The longer you believe managing money is too complicated to do alone, the longer you'll pay them to do it for you. That's why hearing a rule as clear as 15-65-20 feels like a revelation. Cuts through the noise. Hands you back control. And once you see that clarity, you can't unsee it. Which raises the next question. If the wealthy keep it simple, why do most people still sabotage themselves even after learning the rule? The answer is mindset, and that's what we need to break down next. The mindset shift that separates the 1% most people know they should save, invest, and budget. The problem isn't knowledge, it's mindset. The average person sees money as something stressful, scarce, and temporary. They earn it, they spend it, and then they hope the next paycheck arrives before the bills pile too high. That cycle creates constant anxiety and makes every decision reactive. The 1% flip that script. They see money as a tool, not a trap. Instead of asking, "How do I make it to next month?" they ask, "How do I make today's dollar secure my future?" That single shift changes everything. Because once you stop treating money like sand slipping through your fingers, you start treating it like bricks building a foundation. Habits follow mindset. If you believe saving is impossible, you'll always find reasons to skip it. If you believe investing is too risky, you'll never start. But when you believe money can work for you, even in small amounts, you look for ways to make it happen. That belief builds habits. Automatic transfers, consistent investing, clear spending limits. The 1% don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems that flow directly from their mindset. Here's the kicker. Mindset isn't reserved for the rich. You don't need wealth to think like the wealthy. You need discipline, clarity, and the courage to step away from the old patterns. And when that mental shift clicks, the 15-65-20 rule stops being numbers on a page and starts being a lifestyle. But even with the right mindset, there's one more challenge most people ignore: emotions. Money isn't just math. It's fear, pride, guilt, and desire all tangled together. And if you don't control that, your system won't last. Mastering the emotional side of money decisions aren't made in spreadsheets. They're made in moments of emotion. Fear when an emergency strikes. Guilt when you spend on yourself. Pride when you upgrade your lifestyle. Desire when you chase something shiny. These emotions are powerful, and if you don't manage them, they'll manage you. That's why so many smart people make poor money choices. It's not a lack of logic, it's an overload of feelings. The 1% treat emotions differently. They don't try to erase them. They design systems that protect them from emotional mistakes. When 15% automatically goes into savings, you don't panic sell investments during a market dip because your cushion gives you confidence. When 65% of your income is already capped for essentials, you don't spiral into overspending when stress hits, because your structure keeps you steady. When 20% is reserved for fun, you don't feel guilty about enjoying life, which keeps you motivated to stick with the plan. That balance turns emotions into fuel instead of sabotage. Fear is reduced because you're covered. Guilt disappears because your spending is intentional. Pride shifts from showing off to building security. Desire is satisfied without destroying progress. That's how the wealthy win. They let systems regulate what emotions could destroy. And here's the insight most people miss. You don't need to be rich to set up those safeguards. You just need to accept that emotions are part of money and plan for them in advance. The 1% don't have fewer feelings, they have stronger frameworks. Which leads us to the next piece. How to actually build those frameworks into your everyday life so they run automatically, without constant effort or stress. Automation. The secret weapon of the 1% willpower is unreliable. Motivation fades. Life gets busy, distractions win. And even the best financial intentions fall apart when they depend on daily effort. The wealthy understand this, which is why they automate. Automation is the quiet force that makes the 15-65-20 system run without friction, without excuses, and without the emotional tug-of-war that drains most people. Think about it. The moment your paycheck lands, money can be split into the right buckets automatically. 15% goes straight into savings or investments, untouched by temptation. 65% flows into the account you use for essentials, already capped so you don't overspend. 20% is fun money, guilt-free because it's planned. No guessing. No late-night promises to catch up next month. The decision is already made before you even see the cash. This is why the 1% stick to their system. It doesn't rely on them remembering, deciding, or negotiating with themselves every week. Just happens. Automation protects you from your future self. The tired version, the stressed version, the impulsive version. And by removing the constant need for discipline, it frees up your energy to focus on growth instead of survival. Here's the truth. If you're still trying to manage money manually, you're fighting an uphill battle. Automation is leverage. It makes wealth building the default, not the exception. And when money moves on autopilot, you finally feel in control. Not because you're working harder, but because the system works for you. The next step is knowing how to measure your progress inside the system. Because without tracking, even automation can drift. And that's exactly what the 1% never overlook. Tracking progress without getting overwhelmed numbers can feel intimidating. Spreadsheets, charts, endless apps. Most people give up on tracking because it feels like another full-time job. But the 1% know something simple. What gets measured gets managed. And they don't overcomplicate it. They track just enough to stay in control, not so much that they drown in data. Here's how it works. They don't obsess over every cup of coffee or every grocery trip. Instead, they monitor the big buckets. Is 15% still flowing into savings and investments? Are essentials staying capped at 65%? Or are they starting to creep higher? Is the final 20% being used for intentional fun? Or is it spilling into debt? Those three questions reveal more about your financial health than hours of nitpicking receipts ever will. Think of it like a dashboard in your car. You don't need to know the temperature of every part of the engine. You just need fuel, speed, and warnings if something's off. That's what simple tracking does for your money. It gives you the key signals without distraction. And here's the hidden benefit. Tracking progress builds momentum. Watching your savings grow, seeing debt shrink, realizing your essentials are steady. It reinforces your belief that the system works. And once you believe it's working, you stick with it longer. That's why the wealthy make it a habit. They don't track to stress themselves out. They track to stay empowered. The result: clarity, confidence, consistency. And with those three in place, they're ready for the bigger opportunities money can unlock. Which is exactly what we'll get into next. Building wealth beyond the basics. Once the foundation is solid, savings secured, essentials controlled, lifestyle balanced, the 1% shift focus to opportunity. Because wealth isn't just about defense, it's about offense. With their system running smoothly, they have margin. Margin creates choices. Choices create growth. This is where doors open that stay locked for most people. With cash reserves in place, they can seize opportunities others can't. Investing when the market dips, buying assets at a discount, funding a side business, or jumping on real estate when prices align. They aren't scrambling for cash or locked into paycheck-to-paycheck survival. Their system creates the breathing room that lets them play offense while everyone else is stuck in defense. And here's the overlooked part. Opportunities don't always come announced. They show up quickly, and only those with prepared resources can act. That's why the wealthy seem lucky. It's not luck, it's readiness. Their 15-65-20 framework isn't just about balance. It's about positioning. By controlling the basics, they're ready to scale when the moment arrives. This is how the gap widens over time. The average person spends more when they earn more, so nothing compounds. The wealthy keep their rule intact, so every extra dollar accelerates growth. That acceleration is what transforms comfort into wealth, and wealth into freedom. But here's the real kicker. Freedom isn't only about money. The 1% understand that financial freedom means time freedom, peace of mind, and the ability to design a life on their terms. That's the transformation this system ultimately delivers. The transformation that money alone can't buy at first glance. The 15-65-20 rule looks like just another budgeting trick. But once you live it, you realize it's much bigger. It's not just numbers, it's identity. The wealthy don't wake up confident because they're rich. They're rich because they built confidence step by step, anchored in a system that works. Think about what changes when money is no longer constant chaos. Stress lifts, decisions feel lighter, You stop saying yes out of desperation and start saying yes out of choice. Emergencies don't crush you. They challenge you and you're ready. Opportunities don't scare you. They excite you because you have the resources to act. Even everyday life feels different. Dinner out with friends isn't weighed down by guilt. Vacations aren't shadowed by debt. Investments aren't terrifying, they're empowering. This is the real transformation. The 1% don't just manage money. They master peace of mind. They design lives where money amplifies their choices instead of limiting them. And that's available to anyone willing to follow the same framework. Here's the truth. You don't need to wait until you're wealthy to feel wealthy. You need to decide to live by the same principles today, with whatever you already earn. Because the 15-65-20 rule isn't about being part of an elite. It's about giving yourself the same foundation the elite refuse to live without. And when you embrace that, the shift is undeniable. You stop surviving and start designing. That's not just financial freedom. That's life freedom. The truth is simple. The wealthy don't rely on luck, genius, or endless hustle. They rely on rules. The 15-65-20 framework isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. 15% for security, 65% for essentials, 20% for joy. It's balance in action, and balance builds freedom. Now you've seen how the 1% actually play the money game. You've seen how they protect themselves from emergencies, how they let compounding grow their wealth, how they keep lifestyle creep from stealing their progress, and how they sustain motivation with guilt-free fun. Most importantly, you've seen that this system isn't reserved for millionaires. It's available to you, starting with the very next paycheck. The choice is yours. Keep managing money the way most people do, reactive, stressful, always chasing more, or step into the system that creates clarity, confidence, and control. Because once you set these rules in motion, you'll realize wealth isn't about a dollar amount. It's about freedom, stability, and the power to live life on your terms.